Welcome back to American Agenda. I'm Heather Childers along with Joe Pinion. Let's bring in Republican Senate candidate from Ohio, Josh Mandel, who is joining us now. You know, Josh, we've been seeing these images of thousands and thousands of people. We can actually bring up some of them, protesters in Cuba right now, in the streets fighting back against communism and socialism. And yet at the same time, I noticed some of the things that you're talking about in terms of your social media are when we see images of the flag here in the United States, there's not quite the same meaning behind it anymore. As a veteran, what does it mean to you when you see these people protesting, using the American flag as their symbol for prosperity and freedom in these other countries like Cuba? We saw it in Hong Kong. We see it in Iran. But yet there seems to be a push against the freedoms that we stand for here in America.
Listen, I'm a proud Marine Corps veteran. I have a Uncle Abe Mandel, who I never met, who died in Korea in the Marine Corps. My grandfather Harold served in the U.S. Army Air Corps. And that flag means so much to me and to my family. And I believe when you see these images, whether it's in Cuba or other countries around the world, these people who are living under the oppression of communism or socialism, they understand what the American flag represents. They understand that it represents individual liberty, that it represents the freedom of families to say what they want and live how they want and have a pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. And the sad thing, as we watch here in America, you drive up and down streets that have these signs for Antifa or Black Lives Matter or Love Trump's Hate and all these liberal signs. You never see an American flag hanging on those houses as well. And the reason is, here in America, the liberals have come to hate what we stand for as a country. They don't want a country where people are big and individuals have freedom. They want a country where people are small and government has power. And we need to do everything we can as constitutional conservatives, as warriors for liberty, to stand up for the American flag and to stand up for the freedom it represents.
Now, it seems to me, as we look at what's happening here, to me, what I think is maybe a watershed moment in this 21st century. You have what's happening in Cuba. You have the assassination of a president in Haiti. You have the arrest of an opposition leader down in Venezuela. You have the unrest in China. It appears that what we're dealing with now is no longer an ideological battle of conservative versus liberal, but just, do you want to live in a world that is free, or do you want to live in a world that is ruled by tyranny and the actual reduction of those individual liberties? Talk to us about just why this cycle, 2022, having America First candidates up and down the ballot from Ohio to Texas to Georgia and everywhere in between, is so crucial when our way of life seems in many ways under siege.
Well said. Our way of life is indeed under siege by the radical left, by the secular left, who's trying to take God out of everything. I believe that America was founded and grew strong on Judeo-Christian values and that Judeo-Christian bedrock. And we believe as Americans that our rights come from God, not from government. And I think it's an important point, and it's something that we as Americans have a tradition of embracing and passing on to our kids, that the left in this country, they believe in one nation under government, where we as conservatives and we as patriots, we believe in one nation under God. And when you believe in one nation under God, the rules don't change. And when you look throughout the globe, whether it's in Cuba or Haiti or Venezuela or Russia or China, where they're waving the American flag, where the masses love America and look to America and want to be Americans and live under the blanket of freedom that Marines and soldiers and sailors and airmen provide here, we understand that it's worth fighting for. It is worth standing in the gap. And even though there's a loud minority in this country led by people like AOC and Bernie Sanders and Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, they might be loud, but they're not the majority. I believe the vast majority of Ohio, the vast majority of America wants loud and proud America First candidates like myself. And I'm going to Washington to stand and be reinforcements for friends of mine like Jim Jordan, Ted Cruz, and of course, Donald Trump.
Josh, I want to get your reaction, though, to White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki defending the Biden administration's stance on what sparked the protest in Cuba to begin with.
I would say that when people are out there in the streets protesting and complaining about the lack of access to economic prosperity, to the medical supplies they need, to a life they deserve to live, that can take on a range of meanings. There's a global pandemic right now. Most people in that country don't have access to vaccines. That certainly is something we'd love to help with.
So if you listen to what the Biden administration is trying to say, you know, they're blaming COVID, amongst other things, but being very careful to not say socialism and some of the socialist moves that are being made by some of the democratic socialists in this country, the exact opposite of what you were just saying.
Sure. I mean, it's outrageous. It's offensive that the Biden administration is somehow claiming that in Cuba they're fighting for a coronavirus vaccine. Mm-hmm. That's not it. That's a lie. And the Biden administration, Jen Psaki, they know it's a lie. What the people in Cuba are hungry for, are willing to die for, the reason they're waving the American flag in the streets of Havana is because they want freedom. They want the freedom that we as Americans enjoy. They want the freedom that we have because of brave young men and women who've paid the ultimate sacrifice in places like Guadalcanal and Iwo Jima and Normandy and Omaha Beach, that we have this great tradition in America to stand for the flag and respect the flag because of what it represents, that it represents liberty for us as individuals, freedom for us as Americans. And these people in these communist countries like Cuba and elsewhere, they are hungry to have what we have in America. And we as Americans, we as patriots, we have to stand up and fight to protect it.
Absolutely. The freedom of America, for better or worse, allows Democratic elected officials to get on a jet and fly to D.C. to stand up for what they believe is right. Down in Cuba, you have sons and daughters being dragged out of their home by the government, forced to stand in opposition to what the people of Cuba want, which is freedom. Josh Mandel, God bless you, my friend. Thank you for your testimony, your service. We'll talk to you soon.
God bless.
Hi, Emma Reckenberg here. If you like this video, there's a whole lot more to see on Newsmax TV. You can watch for free right here on our YouTube live stream and be the first one here each time our experts break down real news. Just hit that subscribe button, ring the bell icon, and stay with us on America's fastest growing cable news channel, Newsmax TV.